Alright, my microphone is working. Yes. Like that every time now and be so paranoid. Ugh. Still can't believe that. It did happen though. So. Alright. No, I pressed the. Man, I'm on a roll today. You know what? No. Press the wrong menu option. Oh, what a start. What a start. Continue. Load. Yeah. The reason I'd come to school on Thursday was because I'd ended up agreeing to go see Ayase with Misumi. He'd practically dragged me along with him, but at the same time, I was hoping that Ayase might be able to help me. With Rimi gone, I needed somebody to help me. Ayase was the first girl that came to mind. If her injuries were healed, and if I asked for her help, she might be able to do something. And with her help, my odds of getting a real D-sword would get way higher. I was powerless on my own, and she told me before that you couldn't teach somebody how to get a D-sword. But still, Ayase might be able to help somehow. Misumi had gone in through the front door, but when he got to the lobby, he didn't seem sure what to do. I asked him what was wrong.
Yeah. 岸本の病室ってどこなんだろうなって思ってよ。
Good job, champ. Had he come all this way without actually bothering to check? If so, what an idiot.
ここは外来棟だよ。病棟は隣。
そうなのか。
AH Tokyo General Hospital. This was the hospital I'd come to ever since I was little. I'd just been here a while ago, in fact. I had a pretty good idea of the basic layout. Suddenly, I remembered what had happened to Dr. Takashina, and moaned so softly the others didn't hear. As Misumi headed for the inpatient rooms, I looked behind me.
で、病棟の何号室だと思う？
そんなのわかんないよ。
This was a general hospital, with any number of departments in it. I would guess...
多分外科じゃないかな。でももしかすると精神科かも。
When she'd fallen, she hadn't looked like she was that badly injured. And if she was in bad enough shape to mentally to try and jump off a building, it was entirely possible they'd put her there. It had happened to me after the incident in O-Front for some reason.
タクって物知りだな。
Misumi and I figured that we'd bothered the other patients if we wandered around, so we decided to ask about Ayase at the nurse's station. Just as I thought, they gave us a number for a room in the psych ward.
なあ、この前話したよな。女を落とすのに一番簡単な方法。
Christ. As we walked down the hallway, Misumi was grinning at me. That wasn't really an appropriate topic of discussion for a hospital, I thought. I think what he said was that if you want to win a girl's heart, the best time to do it was when she's in a vulnerable spot. Yeah, that sounds like something he would say.
俺は今日こそ
Gross.
あの難攻不落の岸本を落としてみせるぜ。
He flashed his teeth at me and gave me a thumbs up. He was handsome and cheerful, but the words he was saying were awful. It must be nice to be so hot that girls will forgive you even when you're a shithead. Oh, what a douche.
お前って岸本と仲いいだろ？
別に。
しらばっくれるなよ。というわけでフォロー頼むぜ。岸本にいかに三角大輔って人間が素晴らしいかを語ってくれ。
無理だよ。
無理とか言うなって。
Don't lie to the poor girl. Knock it off. This is a hospital, not some sleazy bar. Is it okay to go see Ayase like this? She didn't seem to like Misumi that much. My stomach started to hurt. Yeah, ditch that loser.
お、タク、
This guy sucks.
病室はここじゃねえか?
Misumi stopped and pointed at the plate on the side of the door. It read Ayase Kishimoto. The door was shut and there was no way to tell what was going on inside.
いいか? うまく俺に話を合わせろよ。
I decided to just nod. I needed to talk to her, too. And without Misumi there to help me, I didn't feel like I'd be able to do that.
おーす、岸本さん。
Misumi greeted her cheerfully as he opened the door.
お見舞いに来た。
Suddenly, his tone dropped. His expression froze. I looked over his shoulder into the room to see what was wrong. That's new. Why does she have their swords? Why are their swords here? Or maybe they're also here. The room was small and simple in layout. There was a bathroom on the right side from the entrance and a bed near the back. And on the bed... Oh, dear. Ayase was sitting there, covered in blood. Her dead eyes were staring at us. I wanted to run away too, but my legs weren't moving. I was shaking with fear. But I was also struck by how bewitchingly beautiful Ayase looked as she was covered in blood, and stunned by what I saw lying up against the wall behind her. I couldn't move. Casually placed up against the wall. So that's her D-sword, that's Rimi's D-sword, and Nanami's D-sword. It's a D-sword, 3 of them actually. No, not just 1. 3, including the one she'd had with her before. All of them look different. I think at this point he has not seen any of the other 2, so they're just like weird. One had a strange, streamlined form that barely looked like a sword at all. One had a form like a crucifix. It was painful to even look at. And one was the mysterious, almost mystical weapon that I'd seen her holding before. Why did Ayase have 3 D-swords? Wait, since when was there a rule that you could only have 1 D-sword? It was possible that Senna and Kozupi had several different looking weapons too.
Takumi.
I shuddered when she called my name. She walked toward me.
来てくれたのね。
どうしてそんなに血が。
The red blood on her pajamas still wasn't dry. The raw scent stung my nose.
黒騎士の血よ、これは。
Just one?
黒騎士
Some
って
tells me it's 2.
綾瀬本人の。
いいえ、
ちょっと誰？綾瀬はその人を殺したの？
That's not a normal reaction to that question. Ayase's eyes narrowed and she laughed.
怯えているのね、匠。
Her bloody fingers stroked my cheek. Oh boy.
でも、君を怯えさせているのは、君自身の心の内にあるものよ。不浄なる邪心に打ち勝って、純粋な邪心のみを心に留めるのよ。そうすれば、ディソードは手に入る。手に入れてもらわなくちゃいけない。君は黒騎士なのよ。君には力があるわ。
ディソードを手に入れたら僕も殺すの？黒騎士を殺してきたんだろう？
惑わされないで。それが不浄なる邪心よ。
Ayase was staring into my eyes with a hand on my cheek. Her eyes looked empty, but it also felt like there was a deep light within them. I couldn't look away from her.
黒騎士は本来なら邪神を制御できるわ。けれど邪神王は巧妙だった。グラジオール記目視録詩編第6巻2章50節。グラジオールは邪神を少しずつ侵食することで静かに支配を完了し、邪神の暴走を引き起こすのよ。負けてはいけないわ、邪神王の精神侵略に。
I'd never spent so long gazing into the eyes of a 3D girl. The sadness, loneliness, and strength in her eyes compelled me to keep staring. I hadn't really heard a single thing she'd said. I certainly don't understand half the shit she's saying, so, no. I whispered without even realizing I'd done so.
僕を守ってくれ。
いいわ。
She nodded, far more easily than I'd expected. She brought her face closer. The smell of blood got stronger.
これは予定されていたこと。
She whispered into my ears. My heart was racing.
君を守るわ。君も私を守って。
Standing there covered in blood, she was ravishing, tempting, seductive. It was hard to believe that she was my classmate.
他の黒騎士はもう当てにはできない。最初は予言通りに黒騎士を集めようと思ったけれど、私の力では無理だった。でも匠がいてくれるなら。
It had been the same way at the concert. Sometimes Ayase could look incredibly sexual.
いずれ完全に開くわ、コキュートスの門は。その時邪神王はこの世に降臨する。だから急いで集めるのよ、7本のディソードを。私と君2人で。
There were 3 swords lying up against the wall, which meant there were 4 left.
うち1本は匠、君が見つけるべきディソードよ。
僕は手に入れられなかった。
I'd come close at the O-front building, but in the end, I'd abandoned Nanami and run away. I'd given up on getting it.
落ち込むことはないわ。機会はいくらでもやってくる。すでに匠は見えているんだから。それこそが君が黒騎士である証拠よ。
いつか手に入るのかな。
不浄なる邪神に打ち勝てば必ず。
What was a wicked heart? Did she mean how my mind was constantly thinking up naughty delusions? That would be very difficult. I didn't think I could beat it at all. Ayase left me and headed to the bed. She began to casually undo her top. Oh no.
着替えるわ。
Oh no.
待っ
I looked away quickly. I thought about just leaving the room outright, but
そこにいて。
now he couldn't go anywhere. The sound of Ayase disrobing echoed throughout the silent hospital room. I don't even know what to say. This room wasn't that big. It was bigger than the base, of course. But still, now it was just me and Ayase in this cramped space. And Ayase was behind me, changing. I could sense her taking her clothes off, even if I couldn't see it. Crap, I was getting really nervous. There was no reason to be nervous, though. I'd already experienced this exact situation in Higashi Madasema's H game. A slime girl appears. Why should I be nervous now?
な
It's
ぜ
a
目をそらすの
fantastic question.
匠。
だって見ちゃまずいし。
Probably. My voice was on the verge of cracking.
恥ずかしいのね。
綾瀬は恥ずかしくないの。
Did she mean it was okay to stare? I'm not into 3D girls, okay? I mean it. I really do. Though, I mean, if she's saying I could look, I guess I will. Oh no.
惑わされているのよ、君は。その感情こそが邪神に侵食されている証拠。
惑わされているって、誰に？
邪神王グラジオール。
I looked over at the paperback on the side table in front of me and picked it up. The title read The Apocalyptic Psalms of Gladiale, Book 17.
グラジオールって、なんなの？
邪悪なる存在。負の妄想の塊。人の心の闇に偏在する無意識の集合体。世界に破滅をもたらす神。言い方はいろいろ。
そいつは車椅子に乗ってるの？足が不自由とか？
グラジオールは人の形をしているとは限らないわ。もういいわよ、こっちを見ても。
I very slowly turned around. She had already changed. For some reason, she was dressed in her school uniform.
なんで制服に？
迫っているから、グラジオール覚醒の時が。いつでも動けるようにしておかないと。
Did she need to wear her uniform for that? No, that didn't matter right now.
グラジオールがギガロマニアックスとどう関係してくるの？
ギガロ？何？
I think you mean Black Knights? Ayase's eyes narrowed, just a little. Did she not know what they were? Maybe Senna was the only one who used that phrase.
ギガロマニアックスだよ。セナはディソードを持つ力の持ち主のことをそう呼んでた。ディソードはディラックの海に繋がったパイプだとかなんとか。
呼び方は人それぞれかもしれないわ。ディソードは人の邪神を具現化したものよ。グラジオール記目視録詩編にそう書いてある。第3巻11章23節。予言書なのよ、それは。
Ayase's gaze was locked on the paperback in my hands.
みんなはこう言うわ。私が歌詞によって予知を行っていると。だけど私はグラジオール記目視録詩編からインスピレーションを受けているだけ。その詩編こそ予言の書なのよ。なぜ気づかないの？誰も。
予言の書って冗談でしょ？
事実よ。この渋谷で今まさに起きていることを、そしてこれから起きようとしていることをスイグラーは予言し物語にしている。
スイグラ
ー。
グラジオール記目視録詩編の作者。個人だけれどスイグラーは強大な黒騎士だったと思うわ。私は。
What Ayase called Black Knights the same as Gigalomaniacs? If that was the case, then it would make sense if the author could use his Gigalomaniac powers to write a book of prophecies. I flipped through the book I was holding, The Apocalyptic Psalms of Gladiale, Book 17, and I gasped. Oh my god. Of course it's blank. It was blank. I flipped through every page, and not a single one had a single word on it. Oh my god. Of course. What the hell was this? I looked at the cover. There was no illustration on the cover, just the title and the name of the author. I couldn't see the name of the publisher on it anywhere. I went back to the very first page, but it was blank, just like the rest. I went all the way through, and not a single page had anything on it.
これ不良品？
Sir, I think my book is broken. Could I get a new one?
と ういうこと？
There's something wrong with this book. It's
だって
malfunctioning.
これ全部白紙じゃないか。
何を言っているの？ちゃんと書かれているわ。何度も読んでいるのよ、私は。
そんなこと言ったって。ほら、
I opened the page and shoved it right in front of her face.
どこからどう見ても真っ白だよ。
ちっとも白紙なんかじゃないわ。
いや、白紙だって。
ここに字が書いてある。見えないの？匠。
Was she just screwing with me? Was she serious? Or was she an absolutely crazy girl?
君には見えないのね。
Debatable.
侵食されているからだわ。邪神王に。
Ayase looked totally serious. She didn't seem to be joking at all. In fact, I didn't think I'd ever seen her tell a joke. I looked at the book again, but it was all blank.
僕には白紙にしか見えないよ。
そう。
She seemed slightly disappointed as she took the book from me. Our fingers touched for just a moment, and my heart skipped a beat. Her fingers were cold.
考えたことがある？
何が？
世界は人によって見える形が違うということ。その差異を確かめることはできないわ。概念や認識を他人と完璧に一致させることは不可能だから。でもこれだけははっきりしている。君が見ているものと私が見ているもの、その違いは邪神による影響よ。邪神の集合体が邪神をグラジオール。目覚めようとしている。もうすぐ。もしも目覚めたら、きっとこの世に67億ある世界は邪神王が生む混沌によって混じり溶け合うことになるわ。境界が消え、邪神により連結された世界になるのよ。あらゆるものが規則性もなく生まれ、あらゆるものが一瞬で死ぬ。概念も認識も因果律もすべて破壊される。
Yeah, sounds like a really bad time.
すべてあるがゆえに何もない世界。あらゆる神話と同じように予言されているわ。終末予言、滅びの歌。
Was that really true? What was the meaning of that blank paperback book? Just what were the apocalyptic psalms of the Book of Gladiael?
このままでは滅びの結末に至るだけ。今止められるのは私と君二人しかいないの。
どうして僕ら二人なの？
導きよ。他の黒騎士はすでに邪神王に侵食されてしまった。
The other Black Knights. Ayase had been covered in blood just a moment ago. Blood she said belonged to another Black Knight. Also, yeah, she washed that up off really quick. It's impressive. Had she killed them somewhere in the hospital? But then where were the bodies? Ayase walked past me and put her hand on the door.
どこ行くの？
おしっこよ。
Bear? She answered emotionlessly and left without waiting for my answer.
Huh?
How do you respond to that? Yeah, just go pee. I looked around to see if there were any other books from the Gladiael series around, but there weren't. I didn't know how many volumes there were, but the one I'd picked up a moment ago was book 17. Books 1 through 16 were nowhere in the room. Obviously, it was possible she just hadn't brought them with her. But after seeing the blank pages of the book, I found the idea hard to believe. I left the room before Ayase came back. There were several computers in the lobby with internet access. I'd been to this hospital a few times, so I knew about them. Visiting hours were evidently over, and the lobby was empty. It was so crowded during the day, but now it was almost eerily quiet and kind of unnerving. I hurried over to the computers before one of the nurses could find me and kick me out. I'm pretty smart. From all my anime, manga, and video games, I knew a lot about myths from around the world. That's actually real. I barely do anything other than like watch TV and play games. I go for walks, but I know so much more than I should have any right to. people talk to me and I'll be like, "Oh yeah, I know that." They're like, "How do you know that?" And I'm like, "No, I play video games." That makes no sense. But even I'd never heard of the apocalyptic psalms of the Book of Gladiel. I'd only ever found out about them when I'd been researching Ayase. I decided to search the internet for them. To Deloodle. I was about to say Google, and then I remembered. Deloodle. There was a pretty good There was a pretty good sized number of hits. I was surprised at how many and felt a little frustrated. Like maybe it was big and I just hadn't known about it. But when I went down the list of hits, I saw they all had one thing in common. They were all about Phantasmer Fest. The apocalyptic psalms were always introduced as something Fest talked about, or something the band had come up with. The name was there, but nothing else. I couldn't find anything on the actual contents of the book. Because it's not real. Can we keep pedophilia? What the hell is this? There was a wiki entry, but it only had a few lines of basic information. A fictional novel based on Eastern European legends of Gladiel, the King of Wicked Hearts. A 23-volume high fantasy series that depicts the war between 7 Black Knights and Gladiel, written by R.C.O. Ziegler. Published between 1929 and 1951, and translated into several languages, but often commercially unsuccessful due to its complex writing style. That was all. No, there's one more thing. All volumes are out of print in Japan and difficult to find. I think that might be relevant. It says it right there. See? Right there. It says it. The other mythology pages were all really fleshed out. This one felt way too empty. It was a little better than the wiki article I'd seen on the D-Sword, but not by much. Since anybody could edit a wiki, it's wiki, all right? It wasn't even clear if what it said was true or not. The image on the D-Sword page had been totally wrong, for one thing. An idea had been going around and around in my head for a while now. Maybe the apocalyptic psalms of the Book of Gladiel were just a product of Ayase's delusion. Was she trying to make her own mythos, like Lovecraft did? Lovecraft had, for lack of a better word, turned his delusions into stories, which he'd spread by publishing them. What if Ayase was trying to do the same thing with her songs? Put that way, it sounded like a really cool thing to do. But all she was actually doing was sharing her crazy nonsense with the rest of the world. And to make matters even worse, she thought it was real, not fiction. Was everything she told me a delusion? Maybe this whole end of the world thing was just some hidden desire of hers. A lot of otaku could be like that. I am the key to the world's destruction! Or, like, I don't know, the agent of chaos, goofy stuff like that.
ああ、それは僕もだった。
What kind of ending did she want her myth to have? Was it safe for me to believe in her?
信じるも何も。綾瀬しかいないじゃないか。
Rimi was gone. Senna was a little scary, and Kozupi wasn't somebody you could count on to do anything. That's not very nice. Not incorrect, but that's not a very nice thing. So crazy or not, delusional or not, I had no choice but to rely on her. Also, she had a D-Sword. 3 of them now. Whatever else was false, that was true. Delusions or not, she'd prophesied the new gen murders in her songs. Maybe it was possible that her delusions were having an effect on reality? If that was the case, though, then it would mean that she was incredibly powerful, and I'd be a fool not to use her. Fortunately, although I had no idea why, she seemed to have taken a liking to me. As long as I didn't take anything she said too seriously, there'd be no problem. Yeah, no problem at all. Countdown to hubris initiated. I went back to her hospital room and... I love that voice. It's like, it sounds, even without any music, it just sounds so freaking good. Like, I could actually listen to that for a long time. Ayase was sitting on the bed, eating the meal the nurses had given her. No, was she eating? It looked like she was just sitting there, bored, and humming while she poked her freeze-dried tofu with her chopsticks. That wasn't humming, that was outright singing, thank you very much. The song which she was singing was a phantasm one, the one that was said to prophesy the 3rd New-Gen case, Crucified. A bloody contract for your sins. I'd bought her album, so I knew it. Right now, she wasn't pounding in any steaks. She was pounding, or, well, stabbing, her freeze-dried tofu, though. When she saw me, she smiled slightly, like she was relieved.
戻ってこないかと思ったわ。どこへ行っていたの？
ちょっと調べ物をロビーの PC で。
今日はここに泊まって一緒にいて。
Is that allowed? Is he allowed to do that? Security? Where's security? Wait, seriously? I was so shocked that I took a step back. Since when did she like me that much?
お腹空いていない？食べてもいいわよ。
Here, have some crappy hospital food. She picked up the tofu with her chopsticks and offered it to me.
それって綾瀬が食べたくないだけじゃ。
そうよ。
She smiled just a little.
まずいの、病院食は。不浄な邪心に染まっているのね。きっと。
Was it just me, or was she badly overusing the phrase wicked heart? Maybe it was just her favorite phrase or something.
邪心に染まってるのに僕は食べてもいいの？
普段から邪心まみれでしょ、匠は。コンビニのお弁当やカップ麺は不浄なる食べ物の最たる例よ。黒騎士として覚醒するためには摂取をやめるべきだわ。
Except now, you should definitely eat this tofu, because I don't want it.
綾瀬は普段は何を食べてるの？
チョコレート。
Yeah, it doesn't get much more pure than that, right?
チョコレートって十分邪心に染まってそうな気がするけど。
Wait, did this mean she only ever ate chocolate? That's terrible. She's worse than me.
チョコレートはいいわ。邪心を打ち払う力を持つのよ。あの甘さは。
Yeah, bullshit. I might believe in a lot of weird stuff that was going on around me, but no way in hell was I going to believe that.
というわけで、匠。さあ。
She continued to push the freeze-dried tofu in my direction. Did she really just want me to eat it that bad? Did she really just not want to eat it that badly? I wasn't a big fan of freeze-dried tofu myself. Why is freeze-dried tofu so difficult to fucking say? Freeze-dried tofu. You just told him not to eat impure foods. I'm getting mixed messages from you. Why? This isn't fair. Having a girl offer you food like this was supposed to be every guy's dream, so why didn't it feel romantic at all? Because Ayase just wanted me to eat the food she didn't want to eat? Or was it because Ayase was 3D? She didn't seem likely to give up on me having me eat the tofu, so I put it in my mouth. I bit into it and taste of the broth that had been soaking. What? And taste of the broth that had been soaked in spread throughout my mouth. Got it. I think that sentence does make sense. My brain is not processing it. Again, mixed messages. You don't eat the impure food, but eat this impure food. Good job. Not a chance. Alright, this is funny. Please make her stop. No. Eat all the crappy food. I do not want it. After our meal, Ayase had begun a long lecture on the apocalyptic psalms, seemingly oblivious to the fact that the sun had set. She was so into it that she'd forgotten to turn on the lights in the room after it got dark. What she said, unfortunately, was just a slightly more detailed version of what she told me before. Most of it I already knew. Ayase's voice was always so flat, it really made you really sleepy. With Shogun out there, it was dangerous to fall asleep, but still. Just say yes. Smile and nod, smile and nod. I hadn't been listening at all, but I nodded anyway. Ayase's eyes narrowed, and she drew closer to me. Could Ayase get mad sometimes too? She didn't look like she was the emotional type. If I'd made her mad, maybe I should apologize. More crap about Wicked Hearts? I hope she doesn't mean that literally. What was she going to do to me? I shivered, imagining some kind of surgery. That didn't seem to be what she meant. For some... Wait, here we go. For some reason, she licked her lips seductively. I got a quick glance at her pink tongue. It looked incredibly sexy. Oh boy. Here we go. Oh my god. Anything. I didn't know what it meant to remove a wicked heart, but... how about this, Takumi? Don't make me regret this. I don't know if I want to press this button right now. I'm very scared. Could have been so much worse. Even in the darkness, I could see her frown. Maybe I'd gone a little overboard? I thought that maybe she'd start to hate me and abandon me, so I quickly went to apologize. But she grabbed me. So aggressive. But she grabbed me by the collar before I could. Then she dragged me into the closet. The closet? What? I'm trying to think of... Do hospital rooms have closets? Maybe it's a thing with Japanese hospitals? I don't... I'm trying to think. I don't think I've ever been in a hospital room that had a closet. Ayase pressed her body up against mine. She closed the closet door, squeezing the both of us together inside. I'm guessing, like, she's noticed security or something like that? Or she's just having some fun. I don't know. It was tiny. There wasn't room for two people inside. I was up tight against her body with nowhere to move. Well, if she saw security, why would she go in the closet too, though? that doesn't make any sense. And I could hear her quiet breathing in my ear too. The darkness made me feel terribly excited.
どうしたの?
看護師の見回りよ。
Oh. Then why are you in the closet? Oh, so that's why we're hiding. Visitors weren't allowed at this time of night, and certainly not allowed to sleep here. If I was found, I'd be kicked out. Be surprised if you weren't arrested, honestly. that seems pretty not cool. But how is that supposed to work if Ayase hid with me?
この病院にも敵は多いわ。
敵?
グラジオールの使い、私たちの心を支配しようと虎視眈々と狙っているのよ。
Was she saying the nurse was an enemy? Yes, actually. Actually, yes. I'm not.
ただの被害妄想.
Yeah.
静かに。
Ayase suddenly put her lips over mine. Ooh. Ooh. Oh my god, the sounds. Stop it. Oh my god. I don't know why the sound makes it so much worse. I could feel the softness of her lips. The shock made my mind go completely blank. And just then, the door opened. I heard a strange sound too. Somebody came in, making no noise as they walked.
いないわ。
It's like, if we're talking crazy chicks, this one takes the cake, if anything. This chick is fucking nuts, all right? Like, no contest. I heard a woman's voice. It was the one I'd heard before. It was one I'd heard somewhere before, but I couldn't remember where.
逃げられたのかしら。まさか私たちの正体に気づかれた。
Oh, she gonna reveal the everything?
ええ、不用意に接触しすぎたのかもしれない。
She seemed to be talking to somebody, but I couldn't hear who. Was she talking on a phone then? Alright, this actually, yeah, this, now, I didn't think about that when I was like, why would she go in the closet? She's not just hiding from the staff, she's hiding from this crazy chick. Ayase's lips were still pressed against mine. I smelled something sweet. Ayase smelled so good. Dude, focus, come on. Like, I get it. It is funny that she did that to, I assume she did that to keep him on the hush-hush. And it wasn't just her lips. Her chest, her shoulders, her hips, her thighs, her hair, they were all so soft. There might be someone dangerous just beyond the closet door, but my mind was going totally blank as I gave myself over to the pleasure.
そっちの処理は済んだ？そう、これからなのね。わかったわ。私はスクランブル交差点に向かうから。
Dude, talk to me, focus. There's some important plot is happening. Like, focus.
守る。あなたに信仰の救いあれ。
Crazy bastards. Conversation seemed to have ended. A moment later, the suspicious woman wordlessly left the hospital room. I hope he got any of that. There was no sign of anybody outside the room. It should be safe to go home now. But Ayase still wouldn't let me go. She moved her lips away for just a moment. She looked at me with dewy eyes.
匠、私は導きで、君が救世主。そう決まっているの。だから何をしてもいいのよ、私に。
Oh my god, stop.
叶えてあげるわ、君のどんな望みで
Oh
も。
my goodness gracious. I didn't understand what she was saying. I thought it might be another one of my delusions, but I didn't really mind. Ayase kissed me again, and this time she brought her wet tongue between... God, the phrasing. Wet tongue between my teeth and into my mouth. It wrapped itself around my own. Oh my good lord. I stopped caring about everything. I wrapped my hands around Ayase's lithe, slender body and gave myself over to the pleasure. Again. Oh my god, stop! 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 It hurt to breathe a little. I sucked up, oh my god, I sucked up her hot breath. Well, that can't be very helpful. Oh my god, those like tiny clicky noises of the tongue and the yeah. Oh my god, okay. It's too much. My poor ears. Her saliva came pouring into my mouth. What an awful adjective for that. It was very sweet. I gulped it down loudly. My god. My brain felt paralyzed, like it was going numb. The pleasures of the 3D world were beyond what I could handle. Oh. Oh, that was that the thing with the thing? And I think I know what that was. Now I'm sad. I heard a sound in the distance. Ayase gasped and moved herself away from me.
今の音は
Her lips were wet with a mix of our oh my god. Her lips were wet with a mix of our saliva. Even in the darkness, I could see that much. Forget the sound. Oh my god, talk to me. Forget the sound. Let's go back to kissing. Hopefully more. Yahoo! My virgin days are finally over. Was it Kitakore? I don't know. But wait a second. Had Ayase done something like this with other guys? Wouldn't it be disgusting if she wasn't a virgin? What the fuck? Talk to me. Now you're starting to sound like Misumi. Don't... Or did I only think that because too many H games had rotted my brain? Yeah, don't be a Misumi. No, she had to be a virgin. Nobody would possibly want to date somebody this crazy. Dude, gotta be so mean. Hell, even Misumi had practically run away screaming. Well, that was probably because of the blood, honestly. If we're being completely...
匠
さあせん
Suddenly, she slapped me. The giddiness I was feeling faded instantly. I started to get a little nervous. I thought I was going to cry, actually. Ayase was looking at me sternly. I grabbed onto her.
ごめん嫌わないで
邪神に支配されるのではなく邪神を己に取り込むのよ。でなければ黒騎士として目覚めることはできない。それを忘れないで。
I still wasn't clear what a wicked heart was, but the reason I was so giddy was that Ayase had kissed me, and at least as I saw it, I didn't think it was a good idea to point that out, though.
行くわよ。
どこへ
銃声だったわ。さっきの音。
Yeah, it was. A gunshot? A gunshot? Here in Japan? Sure, it had kind of sounded like one, but I'd only ever heard gunshots in games and movies. It didn't feel real.
銃声だったとして何をしに行くの
これもまた予言にあったわ。すでに邪神王との戦いは始まっているのよ。黒騎士の心が殺されていく。だから回収するの。理想道。私たちにできるのはそれだけ。
The Black Knights were being killed? Did that gunshot mean somebody had been shot? Maybe it's not the gunshot I'm thinking of.
ダメよ。警察も邪神に支配されてしまっている。
Crazy. No, crazy didn't even begin to cover it. Ayase was way just beyond crazy. The apocalyptic psalms were her delusion. Everything she was saying was part of her delusion. What kind of ending did she want her story to have? What was I supposed to do?
ついてきて、匠。
Ayase left the room alone. I hesitated to follow her. Suddenly, I realized... Swords... I was gonna say the swords are gone! But I didn't. The 3D swords near the windowsill had vanished. Ayase must have taken them. I bit my lip, and after another moment's hesitation, I followed her. Yeah. Ayase headed straight to the roof, almost as if she knew exactly where the gunshot had come from. The roof of the hospital was a small garden. There were planters with blooming flowers, but it was too dark to see what color they were. I hid behind Ayase and looked around. I couldn't see anyone here. Nothing was moving. Had this really been where that gunshot had come from? And if so, who was the shooter? Normal Japanese people don't have guns.
やっぱり戻ろうよ。もし撃たれたらまずいよ。
Ayase wasn't listening to me. She walked deeper into the garden. I had no choice but to follow. I could see a blurry blue light in front of us. It was very pale, as if it was about to disappear, but it was shining and flashing.
理想度だわ。
Whose sword is that? Oh, it's Yua's sword. It was elegant, and at the same time had a sharpness to it that seemed to reject the entire world around it. It felt bizarre, like it wasn't of this world. Next to the D-sword stabbed into the concrete, I could see two people lying on the ground. Oh, it's interesting. So, did he kill Bon and Yua? I recognized them both.
ユア。
The girl dressed in a Suime uniform was lying face up was definitely Yua. What was she doing here? The other was a middle-aged man. I remembered him. He was the one who'd questioned me after the crucified case. Both of them weren't moving. I approached them tremblingly. There was a pool of blood forming under both of them. I quickly leapt back, but it was too late. Sticky crimson liquid had soaked into the bottom of my shoes. The detective's body was particularly bloody. I couldn't see any injuries on Yua's body. What had happened here? What were the two of them doing together? I could understand why a detective would have a gun, but who had shot this guy? Was it Yua? So many doubts were filling my head that I had trouble processing what I was seeing. Completely bewildered, I turned to Ayase for help. Ayase walked toward Yua, a frown on her face. She paid no attention at all to the detective. She knelt next to Yua, being careful not to step on the blood, and put a finger up to her neck.
脈はある。
Okay,
まだ生きているわ。
she's not dead.
だけど、死んでいる。心は。そっちの男の人は、もうダメなようね。
Sadness. Her voice was calm as always.
なんでそんな落ち着いていられるんだ。人が死んでるんだぞ。
言ったでしょ。予言されていたからよ。
What do you mean prophesied?
綾瀬が望んだ妄想じゃないの。
そうかもしれないわね。それを確かめる術はないけれど。
そんな。
構わないわ。原因が何だろうと。
Ayase stood up. And pulled out her own D-sword out of the empty air. She brought the shining red blade near the D-sword stuck into the ground. There was an awful resonating noise at a piercing high frequency, like somebody was stabbing a pick into my ear and jerking it around. Then the two D-swords blended together. The way they melted together ignored all laws of physics. It was like a liquid, but also like a clay. They kept changing shape violently, like they were thrashing in pain. The resonating noise got louder. I put my hands over my ears, but it did nothing. something. The air exploded. And the next thing I knew, the D-sword had moved from the ground into Ayase's left hand. Ayase didn't look so good. For once, her expression looked like she was in pain. But then she smiled at me. Her cheeks were a little flushed, like something had excited her.
4本目よ。これで。
There was a dead body right in front of us. The person who'd shot the detective might be lurking up here. Why was the sword more important than any of that? Because it was needed for the ending Ayase wanted? Defeating Gladiel with the 7 D-swords? Was Gladiel even real?
ギガロマニアックスとなったものは誰だろうと一度は壊れているんだよ。
I remembered what Senna had said. Ayase was as broken as the rest of them. Did that mean I was going to end up the same way someday? No, not someday. I'd already broken a long time ago. Ayase made the D-swords vanish. They disappeared, melting into the air.
このこと警察に通報するの
Yuo was my enemy. Leaving her here with this dead guy wouldn't make me feel guilty in the slightest. But I'd stepped in the blood. I looked down and saw that my footprints were clearly visible in the concrete. Oops. The police might easily think I was the killer.
通報はしないわ。
That was a relief, at least. Ayase looked up at the night sky. Her expression was still stern.
そろそろね。
Time? Time for what?
グラジオールは間もなく目覚めるわ。ツイグラーの予言によれば。心して、匠。最悪に包まれるのよ。世界は。君は見たこともない世界を見ることになる。でも乗り越えて。そうしなければグラジオールを倒せない。
Her voice was shaking. Ayase, the girl who wasn't afraid of anything, was scared. Was something that terrible about to happen? Or was she envisioning it in her mind and trying to make it real? My god.
まだ心の準備が
Words.
だったら急いで。もう時間がないわ。
Come on, don't say that. How am I supposed to get ready when I don't even know what's about to happen?
世界は誘拐し、連結が始まる。
She whispered to no one in particular, looking up at the sky. I looked up too. And saw a point in the sky that had turned white. It was a brilliant white, out of place in the darkness of night. What was that? Then I remembered. Hadn't the sky turned white like that during the last earthquake? The white began to spread. I couldn't tell what, but something about it made me feel very afraid. I gulped. Yeah, if I looked up in the sky and saw that, I think I would I would also be scared. I think I would be scared. I think fear is, in fact, something I would be feeling.
グラジオールが目覚めた。
Rumbling. The building was shaking. No, it wasn't just the building. Everything was shaking. The white in the sky was spreading further and further. The next thing that hit me was a terrible ringing in my ears, like the resonating sound from the D-swords a moment ago. It felt like my head was about to explode from within. And then... the whole world turned white. Was this a dream? The sky was red. It had been white a moment ago. But now the whole world was a rusted red. This must be a dream, a delusion like all the other ones. That's what I decided to tell myself. I could see black puffs of mist here and there. Felt like they were shaped like humans. It had to be a hallucination, but it looked bizarrely real. They were shimmering slowly in irregular patterns. One would disappear, only to appear a moment later somewhere else. There were many of them. Just looking at them made me feel upset somehow. Something smelled terrible. I felt like I was going to throw up. I didn't want to be here for a second longer than I had to. I had a strong, overwhelming desire to get out. When I woke up, the sky was bright and Shibuya was a city of death. General Hospital hadn't collapsed, luckily, but there were huge cracks in the walls and the inside was a mess. The lobbies of the outpatient wing were filled with the wounded, some who'd been brought here by ambulance and some who'd walked here on their own. They were all demanding to be the first to see the doctor. When I woke up, Ayase smiled and told me we were going back to Shibuya. I asked her what time it was, and she said around 6 in the morning. I would have been unconscious for 10 hours or so then. I couldn't see Yua anywhere. I asked Ayase, but she said she didn't know. The train ride from Yoyogi to Shibuya takes less than 5 minutes, but the aftershocks from the quake had shut down the trains entirely. The tracks were an absolute mess. They wouldn't be coming back online today. We were forced to walk, but the streets were cracked and caved in, blocked entirely with rubble from fallen buildings. A straight path was impossible. It took us almost 3 hours to get to Shibuya Station. The area around the station was a mess. Most of the buildings had fallen. The number of bodies was unbelievable, and the way they died was too horrible to look at. Some people were still moving. Some people were walking around with looks of shock on their faces. Like us. Others were crouched next to the rubble, waiting for help. Some of them were clinging to the dead and crying. None of the living had the energy left to even look at them. The shock had drained all the energy from their bodies. The strong smell of blood, the smell of dust, and the foul smell of something rotting filled the air. Was this Gladiel's doing? Maybe Gladiel was an earthquake? In America, they give human names to hurricanes, like Andrew or Katrina. Was this the ending that Ayase had wanted? Maybe it was the perfect ending for an apocalyptic fantasy. But even if Ayase was a gigalomaniac, or what she called a Black Knight, could she really have caused this huge earthquake all on her own? She talked about worlds melting and linking. What did that mean? I took a quick look at her. She was a few steps in front of me. This was enough to rattle even her from the look of it. She bit her lip as if it would help her endure the pain, and then walked on silent.
Oi, minna! Koko wa abunai kara hinan basho e ikou!
The speaker was a middle-aged man in a suit. A good number of people were still alive, including us. He seemed to be speaking to the survivors.
救助を待ってたら日が暮れてしまう。避難場所まで行けばきっとなんとかなる。ここに留まっているよりずっとマシだ。辛いかもしれないが立って歩こうじゃないか。俺たちには亡くなった人たちの分まで生きなくちゃならない使命があるんだ。
The guy had a lot of energy, I thought. Several of the people around him must have agreed with him, though, as they began to slowly walk toward him. Most, however, didn't. Ayase ignored him. She seemed to be heading somewhere. I had no choice but to go with her. I felt a stabbing pain in my temples. The same pain had hit me several times on the way here from Yoyogi.
頼むよ。みんな立ってくれ。どうしてわからないんだ。ここは危ないんだって。瓦礫の下敷きになったらどうするんだ。俺はみんなに生きていてほしいんだよ。
My head hurts. Oh. What's going on? The sky suddenly turned red. I looked up and saw reddish bronze clouds in the sky. It was what I'd seen in my dream. The asphalt road, the concrete rubble, the buildings, the glass on the ground, the lampposts broken at their bases, they were all covered in rust. I heard an insane laugh. It was the man who'd been trying to get everyone to evacuate. There was what looked like a black mist wrapped around his body. No, it wasn't just him. Everyone here except the dead had that same mist coming out of their bodies. The mist was the same size as a person, but it was slowly wavering. It seemed curiously alive, and something about it just made me feel sick. This was the same as my dream, too. The man's laugh was pissing me off. I turned over to him, and for some reason, there was an assault rifle in his hands.
今なら警察いないから殺し放題じゃないか。
Oh! He suddenly started firing the gun. I dropped down. I'd been shot. At least I thought I had been. I was right in front of him when he'd been firing. But I didn't feel any pain. I looked up, terrified.
避難場所に行けば水や食料、それに毛布もある。ここに留まっていても意味はないんだ。
He didn't have a gun. He was yelling to the people around him.
さあ、生きる気力を持とう。無駄死に。
The change was instant. The man had been shouting with his fists in the air. There was a burst of static, and suddenly he was holding a gun. That wasn't how human beings worked. There was a gap between one movement and another. It didn't feel real at all. It was like watching two separate videos that had been badly spliced together. He fired his gun again. The people around me were falling over, blood spurting from their bullet wounds. There were screams all over the square. But for some reason, none of his bullets touched me. It felt like I was watching a movie. It didn't feel real.
Takumi.
When Ayase said my name, everything went back to normal. She was staring at me. She looked like she wanted to say something, but instead, she just turned her back to me and started walking. I looked up at the sky. It was cloudy, but it wasn't red. A dull gray light lit up everything around me. It wasn't rusty red. The man with the gun was still calling for people to go to the shelters. The people he'd shot were unharmed. I couldn't see any black mist anywhere. What did I just see? Another delusion, the same as always? If so, my imagination sure as hell wasn't what it used to be. The delusion just now didn't feel real at all. It was like a movie or a video game.
Takumi, 早く来て.
Ayase motioned me onward. Where was she going? Was she headed to a shelter like the man had been saying? I doubt it. As it turned out, she wasn't. For some reason, she'd headed to the Inokashira line station. No staff were there, and the trains weren't moving. She got down onto the tracks and started to walk alongside them. The tunnel was dark and poorly lit. This was a place where most people would never be allowed in their entire lives. It hadn't collapsed yet, but there was no telling when it would. Yesterday, I never would have imagined I'd be doing something like this. An adventure alongside the train tracks. It'd make for a great movie. Wait, wasn't there already a movie like that? It was from before I was born, so of course I'd never seen it. All I knew that it was about walking along train tracks in search of a dead body. Actually, I guess a subway tunnel wasn't a very good movie set. Not much to see. The tunnel would take us to Shinsen, then Komaba Todaime? Butchered that. Then after that, Ikenoe and They're really trying to hurt me. Shimokitazawa. No, that wasn't too bad. If you wanted a way to get out of Shibuya, following the train tracks like this would be a good way to do it. But we'd walked all the way back here from Yoyogi, which was a good distance away from Shibuya's center. It was safe to assume that whatever Ayase was doing, she wasn't trying to escape Shibuya.
どこへ行くの?
深センの駅よ.
What would she want to do there? Was she planning on heading to school? Or maybe she wanted to go to the base. But Ayase didn't know where I lived. I suddenly wondered if Seiratan was safe. Priorities! What would I do if the Kurenai building had collapsed in the earthquake and my wives were buried in rubble? I had more important things to worry about now, though. I could see a light up ahead. Okay, so he does have priorities. Okay. There was a railway crossing out past the tunnel where you could see the sky. Past it, the tracks entered the building again, and that's where the platforms were. The lights on the platform were out because of the earthquake. It was dark inside. It was almost entirely empty. I could only see 2 people sitting on the platform. From their clothes, they were both female students from Suime. Ayase walked straight toward them. Did she know them, maybe? As I got closer, I could see them clearly, even in the darkness. My eyes narrowed. Hadn't I seen them somewhere before? I quickly realized who they were. Yeah, last two swords. It was Senna and Kozupi. But something was wrong. They must have heard my footsteps, but they didn't move to look up. They were just sitting there, unmoving.
Senna?
They already dead.
Kozupi?
I called out their names. They didn't move. What was going on?
黒騎士の心が殺されていく。
Ah. Right.
だから回収するの。理想道。
No way. That's impossible. I ran over to them. I looked into Senna's slumped forward face. Senna's eyes were lifeless. There was no light in them at all. Bright light in her eyes when she'd glare at you was nowhere to be seen. She was whispering something in a voice so soft I could barely hear it, but I couldn't make out what she was saying. Kozupi was the same. There was no light in her eyes. Drool was falling from her lips, and she was emitting a soft, wordless moan. What had happened to the 2 of them? What was going on in Shibuya? I looked over to Ayase, hoping she could answer my questions, but she didn't seem to care about them at all. Her eyes were on their D-swords, which were lying on the ground next to them. She brought her own D-sword close to them. I heard the awful resonancing sound again. The 3 D-swords changed shape. There was a shockwave, like a blast of wind. When it was gone, Senna and Kozupi's D-swords were in Ayase's hands.
これで6本揃った。
Ayase's cheeks were red, like she was excited. She was staring at me.
匠、あとは君が手に入れるだけよ。
How could she be so calm? I started to snap at her, but just then, the stabbing pain in my head came back. The world turned red. Everything rusted and rotted. A terrible smell was coming from Kozuki. Oh boy. She slowly stood up. Her entire body was red. Was it blood? Was it rust?
殺してやる。
Oh boy. She looked up. The black mist was covering her face. I could feel her intense desire to murder me. Her thin arms reached out as if to strangle me. I blinked, and Kozupi was sitting on the ground again. I couldn't see her face because she was slumped forward.
殺してやる。
Static, and Kozupi was right beside me. The black mist touched my shoulder. It was so cold I shivered.
みんな殺してやる。匠ちゃんも鏡でズタズタに。
Oh boy. Her voice was emotionless, machine-like, and that's what made it scarier than usual. I blinked. Don't blink. Senna's body was being ripped apart. Kozupi was bringing down a shard of broken glass on Senna's head. Oh my god. Dark red blood stained Senna's pretty black hair. Kozupi raised the glass again and stabbed. Stop! Static! Now Kozupi was unmoving, and Senna had come to life. Senna was crouched on top of a prone homeless man who hadn't been there a moment ago. Her head was pressed up against his shoulder. It was moving up and down and twitching. What was she doing? Her hair was covering her face, and I couldn't see. Slowly, Senna raised up her head. The man's shoulder was covered in blood. I could see the raw, exposed meat and pink, glistening muscle. No, was that blood? Muscle rust?
Oh, hi. I hear.
Ah, stop! Senna turned around. Her mouth was covered in blood. She was chewing something. No, thank you. Don't like that. I felt dizzy and fell forward. Then the world was back to normal. Headache was gone. I put a hand to my forehead and shook my head a little. I felt awful, like I was going to vomit. There was no terrible shock or instant feeling of terror, but something like a poison was working its way through my body. A sick feeling that wouldn't go away. I looked up at Senna and Kozupi again. The two of them were sitting there, unmoving.
どうしたの?
Ayase offered me a hand. She looked like she wanted to say something again. I took her hand and stood up. We left Senna and Kozupi where they were. I wanted to help them, but didn't feel like I had the strength to do it, and Ayase didn't seem to care. We headed back to Shibuya Station. We encountered several injured people on the way back. A whole bunch of dead bodies, too. Ayase was looking up at the sky, tense. I resisted the urge to throw up and spoke to her.
綾瀬はどんな結末を望むの?
結末?
Yua was missing. Senna and Kozupi had their minds destroyed. Ayase had taken the D-swords from all the Gigalomaniacs. Well, stolen would be more accurate. And Ayase was the one who'd set it all up to happen, too. Could I be sure it wasn't Ayase? Had she just been lucky enough to have every single Gigalomaniac with a D-sword conveniently have their mind destroyed just before she got there? Not a chance in hell. And if Ayase had set that up, the earthquake was her doing. Gladiator was a myth that Ayase had created.
この地震が綾瀬の妄想じゃないって言い切れる? 綾瀬だって望んでたんでしょ?
そうね。
なんでこんなこと?
匠、結論を急がないで。すでに予言されていたの。セイグラーによって。私はそれを知っていた。ただそれだけ。
グラジオール機は綾瀬の妄想じゃないか。そんな本どこにも存在しないよ。
匠も見たはずよ。私の病室で。
ああ、見たよ。でもあれは白紙だった。
匠に見えていなかっただけよ。
そんなの詭弁だ。嘘だ。僕を騙そうっていうのか。
世界は約67億ある。つまり人類の全人口よ。異なっているの。それぞれの見ている世界は全く同一であることはないわ。匠と私もそう。
それが本当だって言うならそう出してよ。どうせ無理なんでしょ。
What's your source, Senator? Ayase stared at me, her eyes narrowed. It wasn't like she didn't know what to say. It was more like she was trying to keep her feelings from showing.
見たいの？私が見ている世界を。
できるならやってみてよ。たとえ見せられても信じないだろうけど。
違うわ、匠。君はもうすでに見ている。私の世界と君は少しずつ同期し始めているのよ。
何を?
Oh. Okay. The world turned to rust again. Is this like her version? It's like he's like flipping back and forth between what he sees and what she sees. I could see a black mist hovering over the people on the ground. There was a child crushed under the rubble. His head was poking out. A man who looked like his father was trying to save him. static. The father was stamping his foot onto the child's head. The boy's skull was split open like a watermelon. Blood and brains were everywhere. This is just a real fun thing to read. Good time. More static. The boy's head was unharmed. The father was shouting to him, "Hang in there, I'll get you out." Static. The boy wasn't under the rubble anymore. He was screaming at his father, "Get your ass moving, you old geezer!" He was stabbing him with a knife. A short distance away, a young man and woman were sitting on the ground. They were huddled together under a blanket. Static wrapped itself around them. The man was raping the woman. The woman's screams echoed off the broken street. Her screams disappeared in another burst of static. The two of them were sitting there silently. Two middle-aged women were slowly moving down the street. They looked like sisters. Burst of static, and one was yanking another by the hair. She was pulling hard, dragging her down the street. Tufts of hair were being ripped out. More static, and everything was normal.
なんだよこれ。
Yikes.
私の世界よ。
I don't like your world. Your world's not nearly as fun. This? It was her delusion, not mine? Or was it a delusion at all? Was it real? I could see the black mist around Ayase's chest, too. I looked away, trying to keep it out of my field of vision.
匠の見ていた空はどんな色をしていた？
どんな青い。
あんな色？
Ayase pointed at the sky. It was red.
あれは赤土色だ。
赤土色？あの色は青じゃないのね。
どこからどう見ても青空じゃないよ、常識的に考えて。
でも私にとってはあの色が青なのよ。
What are you talking about?
匠は説明できるの？青色ってどんな色？
どんなって、だから空の色。
あの色の空しか知らないのよ、私は。
みんな青がどんな色かぐらい知ってるでしょ。
だから説明して、例えを使わずに青がどんな色なのか。
Oh boy. Without using examples. I thought, but got nowhere. We couldn't come up with any way to explain the color blue. Ayase looked sad when she saw my reaction.
世界は約67億ある。そう言ったはずよ。空の色も67億通りある。みんな見ているものが同じだとは限らないわ。
Everything turned back to normal. This color was my sky.
綾瀬はずっとあんな世界を見てきたの。
She gave me a soft nod.
生まれた時からずっとそれが当たり前のことだと思っていたわ。世界の構造として。でも違うのね。今匠の話を聞いて理解できたわ。
あの黒いもやは何なの？
写真を。誰でも持っているものなの、人ならば。そしてこの写真がグラジオールの糧となり、形を作り出していく。見えた？人々の負の妄想が。
Was that what I was seeing when I saw the static? And then all those people were doing all those terrible things?
私は昔から見てきた。黒騎士ならば程度の差はあってもみんな見えているはずよ。そこにあるのはむき出しの悪、 むき出しの欲望。
So Ayase had been seeing that world since the day she was born?
匠、私が望む結末はこの錆びついた世界から魂ごと抜け出すこと。そのためにはグラジオールを倒さなければならないのよ。
Ayase walked over to me.
だから見つけて、あとは匠だけなの。理想像を見つけて。
無理だ。
I grabbed Ayase's shoulder and pushed her away. Ayase's eyes went wide, like she'd been shocked by like she was shocked by what I'd done.
なぜ諦めるの？
僕は綾瀬が思うほどすごい人間じゃない。どれだけ望んでも理想度が地に入る兆候すらないじゃないか。オーフロントの時もそうだったし、地震が起きてからもそうだ。方法がわからないんだ。理想度なんて手に入れられないよ。自信がないよ。
それならなぜ私を助けたの？
Ayase approached me again with a new forcefulness in her step. I backed away.
助けたって一体何のこと？
私が学校の屋上から飛び降りた時、君が花壇のある世界を生み出した。だから私は一つ上のステージに魂を移すことはできなかったわ。
It was just luck. I didn't even mean to do it.
それでもいいと思った。君の力を知ることができたから。あの時から君が私の希望になったから。
Please don't have any hopes for me. Don't expect me to do anything.
匠、自分を卑下しないで。それは邪神王の精神侵略よ。負けてはいけないわ。君には力がある。確実に手に入れられる。必ず理想像。
無理だ。無理だよ。
I thought I could stay with Ayase. I thought she was the only one who could protect me. But now after spending time with her, I understood. I couldn't stay with her after all. The world she saw was just too different from my own. To be perfectly blunt, she was too crazy for me. I'm a piece of shit, aren't I? But I am who I am.
なぜそんなことを言うの？
She was clinging to me with tears in her eyes. The cool, unemotional girl I'd known was nowhere to be seen.
私はこんな世界にいたくない。お願い。
I'm like so insanely invested in this all of a sudden. That's like
希望になってプロ騎士として目覚めて。
Yeah. Help her, goddammit.
無理だよ。
無理じゃないわ。
Ayase's world synchronized with mine again. The black mist flowed out of her chest and wrapped around my body. It was like an anaconda encircling its prey to squeeze and kill it. I could feel its awfulness up against my skin. It was Ayase's raw, exposed desire. Nobody was used to seeing the exposed emotions of other human beings. Static.
君は私の希望。
Ayase was staring at me. Her eyes were pitch black.
君を離さないわ。常に止める。どんな手を使ってでも。
Fingers started unbuttoning my blazer buttons one by one.
君の欲しい。
Why do we have to go here again? She pressed herself up against me. like she'd done when she kissed me in the closet. I was frozen solid. I couldn't move. All the buttons were undone, and she opened my shirt. She then began to loosen my belt and lower the zipper of my pants. Why?
欲しい
Her cold hands ran across the skin of my chest, and she dug her nails in. The pain was awful, but I still couldn't move.
欲しい
The fingers dug into my flesh, went between my bones. Oh, goodness, that's very deep. And gently grabbed my beating heart. Oh my, that's not good. Don't do that. I was shaking from fear, from pain, and from the coldness of her hands.
あったかいもらうわね
Alright. I'd have to decline on that one. Thanks for asking permission, though.
ダメ
Oh, it was rhetorical? Okay. That's a shame. I could feel the blood vessels bursting. Blood poured out from my chest. She was taking it. She was taking my heart. Listen, Ayase, when I said you stole my heart, I didn't mean literally. The world suddenly changed color. Everything was dim and blurry again. The red bronze color was gone. My body was unharmed. I put my hand to my chest and I could feel my heartbeat. My heart was right there. She was standing in front of me. Her expression looked so sad, like she might cry again at any moment. Again, when she'd taken the D-sword from Yua. Oh god. Itchy eye. When I'd first seen her world at the Scramble Crossing, when she'd taken the D-sword from Senna and Kozupi, she'd always looked at me like she was trying not to cry.
首そんなつもりじゃないの写真を制御できなくなっている私も取り込みすぎたせいかもしれない理想度写真王の精神侵食で私はおかしくなりつつある
Wasn't that all just part of your delusion? Everything you're telling me is a lie, isn't it? The words came to my mind, but I didn't say them. I couldn't say them. Ayase was always so cold, so reserved. She never had any kind of expression on her face at all, but now she looked so sad. She was showing me how fragile she truly was.
僕はどうすればいい
A very small tear ran from the corner of my eye. She was looking at me desperately. A corner of her... her...
私は支配されつつあるわ邪神王の攻撃によってこのままじゃ自我を保てないだから取り除いて私の中を侵食する不浄なる邪神を
取り除くってどうやって
私の世界を見たでしょあの黒いもやは人が持つ不浄なる邪神が具現化したものむき出しの悪意それを掴んで私の体から引き抜いて
Can't. Just the thought of doing something so disgusting.
お願い匠私でいたいの私の世界を救って
Then, slowly, she dropped to the ground. She looked so frail. We'd promised. She told me this.
君を守るわ君も私を守って
Senna and Kozupi were broken beyond repair. Rimi was gone. I didn't want to lose Ayase too. That was part of it. But more than anything, I wanted to save her. I knew there was no way I could. But even if Ayase was just crazy, even if this was all just part of her delusion, I wanted to save her. The second I had that thought, rust covered the world. I could see the black mist coiled like a snake about to strike, one end coming out of her chest. Just looking at it made me feel terrible. I wanted to look away. But if I did, nothing would change. I had to try. But I couldn't. My heart felt like it was being crushed in my chest. The headache was getting worse. I can't do it. I can't. I'm not the kind of person who could save somebody else. I looked up when she called my name. She was offering me her hand. Wet eyes stared straight at me. Complete trust, or maybe just dependency? But nobody had ever relied on me like this before. My heart was starting to lose hope, but with the help of Ayase's voice, I managed to keep from giving up. I bit my lip and took a step toward her. Her black snake stretched out to me like it had found new prey and wrapped around my neck. It was so freezing cold that I actually felt hot. It wrapped around my neck with a gentle, almost pleasant force. Ayase fell toward me. All the strength had left her body. I had to support her from falling. I put my hands around her thin waist.
本当にいいの？
いいわ。
I'm really worried about what's gonna if I press these buttons. I gulped loudly, and then I reached my hand out toward the black snake coming from her chest. In an instant, the mist took physical form and became a black leech. The feeling of disgust got even worse. Ayase's wicked heart in its purest form, the ugliest parts of her, the ones she didn't want to show anybody. That's what this was. I grabbed the leech's body. It was slippery and so cold it was physically painful. I wanted to let go of it immediately, but I didn't. Oh yeah, it's got a little mouth down. It's like a little mouth down in the corner. Gross. Ayase was moaning with a look on her face somewhere between ecstasy and pain.
But...
What's this music? Trippy as hell. I pulled as hard as I could. I could feel what felt like tearing flesh. Black liquid poured out from her heart, got all over my hands and face. I couldn't tell if it was blood or something else. I ignored it and kept pulling at the leech. I stopped. I couldn't take her screaming, but Ayase put her hand on mine. Her voice was strong, even if she was covered in sweat. I didn't hesitate anymore. If I did, I'd just make her suffer. I used all my strength and pulled on the leech. Her body was spasming hard. The leech kept coming out. It was longer than I thought. It turned into a black lump and wrapped itself around my arms. It was squeezing my hands with incredible strength. Maybe these were its death throes. I grit my teeth at the pain. I pulled it out, and I didn't know what to do with it. Ayase gently stroked my cheek, leaning her body up against mine.
不浄なる邪神は君の手で純粋な邪神へと変わるわ。
The black wicked heart in my hand began to glow with a purple light, with a sound like a microphone feedback or a scream. Oh, hey! Turned into a sword.
これ
Oh, hey.
ディソード
I'd wanted it so badly, but I'd never been able to get one. And now it was in my hands. Ayase's wicked heart had become a D-sword. Alright. Oh, God. That looks painful.
匠
As I held her in my arms, Ayase smiled. She was still in pain, but she was smiling. There was sweat on her forehead, and her bangs were stuck to her brow.
ありがとう。目覚めてくれて。
Oh, well, you know... Alright, this isn't quite as joyous a moment as I thought it was. Did I really do something worth a thank you? I couldn't tell. I wasn't sure.
匠
Ayase put her hand around my neck. She held me tight.
君だけよ。私の話を真面目に聞いてくれたのは嬉しかった。すごく。
Her body was so hot. The black liquid on her chest was gradually turning red. The blood stained my clothes too. I didn't care. I held Ayase tightly. Her breathing was ragged, and with each breath she took, her whole body heaved. I could smell her sweat, but even that didn't bother me.
大好き。
Did I love Ayase? Maybe I was just dependent on her, but she was dependent on me too. That wasn't so bad, was it? Maybe we could just stay together like this. Suddenly, the sky behind Ayase turned from a reddish bronze to black. It was like a stain, or maybe a star? The size of the stain grew bigger and bigger. It was on its way to blotting out the whole sky.
なんだあれ
I whispered in shock. Ayase saw something was wrong, and with my help, staggered to her feet to look up at the sky.
あれが目覚めた邪神をついに侵略を始めたんだわ。結局私は間に合わなかったというの。もう止められないの。そんなことさせない。
Ayase pulled her D-sword from empty air.
どうするつもり
グラジオール記目視録紙幣にはこう書かれているわ。7本のディソードが集まった時、暗黒の大樹が現れると。それは純粋なる邪神の塊。邪神をほふることのできる邪神。あらゆる崩壊を飲み込み、邪神王の身を砕くことのできる。同質にして異質なるもの。その大蛇を出現させるのよ。グラジオールを倒すために。
She was still unsteady, but somehow managed to raise her D-sword and close her eyes. It was almost like she was meditating. But I waited a moment and nothing happened. The sky had turned completely black now. It was almost like night had fallen. No, it was even worse. The black mist became a fog that settled over the city of Shibuya. It became a tsunami, filling the city of Shibuya with wicked hearts. It was getting closer, slowly, traveling along the rubble-filled ground. Everything was turning black. It was infecting the whole world without a sound. And then the wave was upon us, lapping at our feet. I let out a moan of despair. The rusty world was starting to rot. It was rotting, collapsing, turning to nothingness. The people, the corpses, the rubble, everything was melting together, giving off a terrible stench.
綾瀬どうにかならないの
して。
Ayase was looking at her sword tearfully, ignoring my call.
ディソードが7本揃っているのにどうして現れないの。このままじゃグラジオールに世界は飲み込まれてしまうわ。やっぱり黒騎士が7人集まらなければどうしようもなかった。予言通りに進めなければダメだったのよ。
The waves were getting higher and higher. They'd been at our ankles just 30 seconds ago, now they were at our knees. The strange thing was that I could feel my body resisting being swept away by the waves. Did that mean they were physically here? They weren't just an illusion? The thought terrified me. Shibuya really was about to run away.
綾瀬が妄想すればいい。グラジオールを倒す妄想を。
I screamed. I couldn't take it anymore, but Ayase shook her head.
私の妄想じゃないわ、グラジオール機は。
だとしても僕にも綾瀬にもその予言をねじ曲げて新しい妄想を現実にすることは可能なはずだろ。それがギガロマニアックス、いや黒騎士なんだろ。
でも匠
She was looking at me helplessly.
わからないの。どうすればいいのか。
No. I couldn't speak. The black mist was covering the whole world. The sky was completely dark. There were no stars, no light at all. The black waves were up to our waists, and a torrent of water was threatening to pull us under. It was all we could do to stay standing. A half-melted corpse flowed right past us, buoyed by the water. If I went under, I'd end up like that too. The thought made me want to scream in terror. What do I do? What do I do? But no ideas came. I wasn't a hero, just a creepy otaku. Even if I had a D-sword now, I didn't know how to use it. I was completely useless. Somebody should just stake me to a wall and kill me, right? Like in the Crucified murder. Then I suddenly remembered. That's his song. The lyrics.
歌を歌うんだ。
Power of song. It wasn't just a guess. It was the only thing I could think of, but I was sure it would work.
歌で綾瀬の妄想を世界に拡散させるんだ。
The world Fess had captivated the youth of Shibuya. The myths of Gladiel by themselves weren't anything special. They might not even exist. Maybe they were a delusion that only Ayase had ever possessed. But now, that had changed. Phantasm songs had spread those myths to every young person in the city. She'd created a shared awareness.
だから歌うんだ。グラジオールを倒す歌を歌ってよ、フェス。
Hell yeah.
歌えというの。この状況で。
Power of music.
歌を歌うことで導きが現れるって前に言ってたじゃないか。
そうね。言ったわ。そしてあのライブで匠と出会えた。匠。
Ayase reached out her hand to me. I grabbed it and held it tight.
匠は好き？私の歌。
うん。
I'd listened to the CD I'd bought at the concert a bunch of times. I hadn't because of how much I hated crowds, but I'd actually wanted to go see her concerts a bunch more times. I nodded, and Ayase smiled and looked so happy. Oh!
ここで滅びても別にいいかもしれない。
That smile is so adorable.
匠がそう言ってくれたから。歌うわ。聞いていて。匠。
Ayase closed her eyes. She concentrated, focusing her mind just for a moment. Then she took a deep breath. When she opened her eyes again, she wasn't Ayase anymore. She was Fess, lead singer of Phantasm.
最下に契約の地を。
She whispered the name of the song and began to sing. Her voice echoed throughout her voice echoed towards the dark black sky.
杭って杭って闇夜を切り裂き月光を浴びて幾千もの鉄槌は汝の痛みとなりて今解き放たれるやがて叫びは宙に舞い夜空は赤く染まるだろう十字の杭は力となりやがて聖域へとたどり着く
The song's lyrics gave me the hint I needed.
綾瀬杭を打つんだ
The song wasn't about the crucified murder at all.
7本の偽ソードを合わせて闇夜に打ち込むんだ
This was the song about Gladiel's defeat, the song that would liberate Ayase from her rusted world.
綾瀬の世界を壊せ
Ayase stared at me. Her eyes were ablaze with fire. I always thought she was the most beautiful when she was singing. She felt so much more alive. There was no trace of the despair that had been there just a moment ago. Ayase understood exactly what I meant. She said nothing, just nodded. She held my hand tighter. As I struggled to stay upright against the black waves, I entrusted Ayase with my D-sword. When she took it, a red light surrounded it, and it disappeared. But it wasn't gone forever. The red light was swallowed up by Ayase's D-sword, like something was guiding it there. I watched it go, and let go of Ayase's hand. Oh my god, that's so sick! She unleashed the power of a black knight. The air around her began to shake with an intense, violent blast of wind. The black waves were pushed back by the shaking air, began to swirl around us like a whirlpool. I don't think I've heard this one before. There was not even a slight trace of the bored, languid girl that Ayase usually was. Yeah, this is... Yeah. She raised her sword. She took a wide stance, and she swung. Her body was filled with nervous tension, and with a strength of will that was looking toward the future. The pure destructive impulses within her, the ones she was barely keeping in check, were ready to explode. The red pulsing grew faster and faster. That sword controls fate. That sword is That sword is a convergence of sorrow. That sword allows us to interfere with a higher plane. A double-edged sword which swallows up wicked hearts and which buries them. The cry of Ayase's soul seeking salvation took physical form. It was a manifestation of her chaotic heart. Her glare was locked on a single point. The black heavens. The ones that had covered the blue sky I knew. The ones that had covered the red sky she knew. A sky of impure, wicked hearts about to bring darkness to the world. All that was left was for me. Oh my god. The music's too dope. It's absorbing my ability to read. I can't. All that was left for me to do was pray. The King of Wicked Hearts or the Black Knight. It was up to Ayase which would be the winner. But strangely, I felt certain I knew who the victor would be. The myths Ayase had created with her songs would never lose to the King of Wicked Hearts. So, stakes, pierce the world!
開け天国の扉
With the speed of a bent bow snapping forward, Ayase threw the weapon with all her might. Nice. Line of light appeared in the air. Oh, this is the one that goes quick. The impact blew away the darkness and pierced the red heavens and stabbed into the sky. The sky cracked. The crack grew wider. And then, with a flood of sound, oh my god, I can't. The world shattered. Yes! That's sick. You have no idea how hard I was trying not to pick air guitar just there. Like, it was at a physical, I had to physically resist from doing that. Oh, that was awesome! And then this, and then I just, oh, that was great. What a sick ending. And then the song, like there's no, I don't think there's a single song in any of these games that I actively dislike. They're all incredible. Every single one. Even Fetishism Arc, which has the most ridiculous name of all time. I don't even care. They're all great. So, and I will be listening to this, like, at least 700 times before the day ends, probably. I can't. Now that I've sufficiently embarrassed myself. The next thing I knew, color had returned to the world. Oh, she gets to see the blue sky. Sky was blue. I couldn't explain the color with words. But the sky I looked up at was blue. Had we defeated Gladiale? If nothing else, the black mist covering the world was gone. A warm, soft hand held my own. Ayase was standing beside me. She was looking up at the sky and wordlessly weeping. Man, you can't hit me with that. That's too much. My heart. You can't. Man. Oh, that's... I can't. It's too much.
見えるわ。匠が見ているのと同じ色の空が。
Such a pure color. So pure it seeps into your heart. So pure it hurts to look at. I never knew that such a pure color was spread out right above our heads. Is she supposed to be saying this? No, okay. Shibuya was buried in rubble. It was a city of death. There was no trace of the glitter and brightness it had before. But Ayase looked at it, eyes squinting at the light, and said,
世界はこんなにも美しいのね。
She softly squeezed my hand as she spoke. You can't just break me like that, man. Like in the last like in the last 5 minutes, you can't just break my heart and soul in pieces like that. Bloody contract for your sins. That's the ending. That was great. Just out of curiosity, I assume that got added to the this, right? Yeah. Leave it at that. All right, I'm out. Oh wait, what's my whose eyes are those percentage? Still at 94%. Sick. All right, I gotta go. I have to go cry deeply. Goodbye.